I had 5 words when I heard new Falcons GM Ian Cunningham wants to build in the trenches. You love to see it.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Falcons, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcast network in all of the galaxy. And today's Locked On Falcons is brought to you by FanDuel. Since it is last call for football on FanDuel, if you're a new customer, just bet $5 and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if you win. If you don't know me, I'm your humble host, Aaron Freeman, a.k.a. Sirius Black. Been covering the Atlanta Falcons for 2 decades, formerly at FalcFans.com, RIP. Still going strong as a humble host of Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. And on today's daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, we're going to be talking all about how new Falcons general manager Ian Cunningham wants to build in the trenches, which is music to the ears of my guest, Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta. He'll also share, Jarvis that is, his vision of what the Falcons should look like, and maybe we'll get Ian to borrow some of that vision. And then, of course, we'll get Jarvis's thoughts on the Falcons' quarterback future, which is going to be a big ongoing topic of discussion all off season long. But Jarvis, let's start off talking about the thing that I know you love talking about, which is getting into them trenches. And for many, many years, Jarvis and I were going on 4 years working together here as part of the #1 sports podcast network in the galaxy. And we have spent the vast bulk of that time talking trenches, but the Falcons have made strides over that time. You know, it's almost as if like us constantly talking about that is starting to pay off, but it feels like, you know, it felt like pulling teeth, as they say, to get the Falcons to this point. Yes. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be that with Ian Cunningham, where he comes in day one, basically being, you know, this is what I believe in. And again, this is one of the beauty of hiring a offensive lineman as your general manager, because he is going to value that area. I know, Jarvis, given your background as a defensive lineman, you know, not as much love lost between you and the offensive lineman out there on the planet, you know. Sure. But I'm curious, when you heard Ian say that at the presser, by the way, congratulations on getting that first question in.
I know, man.
I had a lot of comments from some everydayers being like, "Oh, look at Jarvis in the suit, looking all dapper in the suit." But you know, we out here, baby. D-Led, he's coming for your throne. But when you heard Ian say that at the presser, you know, obviously I know how much a fan you were, but go ahead and elaborate for the listeners, you know, what it felt like in the moment to hear a general manager really put emphasis on the area of the field that you love.
Man, I felt like I heard angels, you know what I'm saying? Like angels singing praises, man. And just, oh man. Just like, you know what I'm saying? It was just, I started elevating, bro. I was like, oh, I don't even know what he said after that. Like after he said that, bro, like I shut my ears off. I started levitating, dog. I was just sitting up in that mug, floating in the first row. But no, seriously though, man, that's what I like to hear, because when you have that perspective and you value offensive and defensive linemen, like that's at the pureness of your soul, like you plan on being around for a while, because if you can hit on that and combine that with, I like picks. You know, one draft we went into with 5 picks, we had 10. I love to hear that type of stuff, bro. When you talking about taking some chances on the guy, trading back a couple spots because you don't necessarily have exactly what you want right there, and being willing to trade back and take a couple picks because somebody is thirsting for the guy that's available at that pick that you're sitting at the moment. Yeah, man, I love that type of stuff. That is the type of thing that you set yourself up for the now, and you also set yourself up for the future, because if you hit on multiple and you look at it and you get multiple picks, you get another 4th and another 5th or something like that, and you hit on and you end up with 8, and you mess around and hit on 5 of them joints, that's future. That's foundation. That's building. That is you're setting yourself up to keep your job. Like, because like you got to think long term as a general manager, man, and also you have to think for the now as well. And because Kevin Stefanski's like, man, I'm trying to win now, dog. I got stuff to prove. I got to keep my job, and I got to do what I need to do to prove that I was the right guy for this team. So yeah, when he started talking about trenches and talking about like getting multiple picks, man, he was right up my alley, man. That was right up my alley.
Now, Jarvis, what part of you, it's still fresh and you're still riding the high, but what part of you would be upset? Because I know in past years you've been very upset with certain selections, but despite Ian Cunningham setting you up, getting your mouth all ready for some hash with the Falcons going trenches, if they go into this draft on day 2 of the draft and go like, no, we're going wide receiver, we're going corner, would you feel betrayed at this point in time?
I don't have a problem with you drafting wide receivers and corners. It's just that I need to know who you are at the core. Who he is at the core is trenches. Like, you build off of that, right? Like the offensive line. If you feel like Caleb McGarry can give you 3 more years, and you see a wide receiver that can be a potential wide receiver 2 for you, yeah, I just need to be able to see the vision. It can't be, I'm just gonna draft the best player out there. Shoot, bro, I don't care what my roster looking like. Boom, Kyle Pitts. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't understand that. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But if you draft a guy like Penei Sewell or Michael Parsons or something like that, I can understand that. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But like tight ends don't do anything for me, brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you were to get a corner, oh my goodness, bro, how many times have we complained on Sundays at about 2:30, and then we get to the end of the game about 4:15-ish, starting the Falcon Squad show, and we're talking about the corner opposite of AJ Terrell getting toasted all game. Oh, man, I won't have an issue with it. Like I said, it feels like this is the first day we heard Ian Cunningham speak. It just feels like there's a new day here in Atlanta. And, I'm not going to blindly trust Ian, because, I'm not built like that, what I'm saying, especially when it comes to this team. But when you tell me who you are, I'm going to believe you until you prove different.
Yeah. The benefit of the doubt. He has earned that at this point in time. Yeah. Terry Fontenot got the same thing in that initial draft as well, that initial offseason. Mm-hmm. And it just over time, it was like, oh, okay. Like, all right. So we'll see. We'll see. But you mentioned the vision, right? And believing in the vision of this team. And Jarvis, I'm curious to get your vision of what you believe a Kevin Stefanski, Ian Cunningham led Falcons team, what your vision is for that. And maybe, just maybe, Ian Cunningham and Kevin Stefanski will maybe be out there listening, and we'll borrow from that in the future. So we'll do that as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Finding a doctor that you actually like discovering diamond in the rough. You're looking for someone in network, nearby, with availability, someone who listens, who makes you feel comfortable, explains things clearly, and helps you walk out feeling confident about your next step. But your diamond in the rough doctor exists, and finding is easy with today's sponsor, ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that's going to help you find and book high quality in-network doctors so you can choose someone you truly connect with. Being able to choose in-person or video visits is going to make scheduling easier, and you can do that with ZocDoc. Their real-time availability updates means that you can book instantly. You don't have to worry about playing phone tag with various doctors' offices. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments, whether we're talking dentistry, primary care, and so much more. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a doctor that you love today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thank you to ZocDoc for sponsoring today's message. And, we don't necessarily have to worry about this with Ian Cunningham, but, sometimes you make a hire and it looks good on paper and you find out later it's not the right fit. All you need to make sure you can avoid that is Indeed Sponsored Jobs, today's sponsor, and they're going to help you find the right match. If you're hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other websites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs is going to put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. So spend more time interviewing the candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you give your job that premium placement that it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying that you heard about it on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. So continuing today's Locked On Falcons, want to plug the Everydayer Club. We thank each and every one of you that is an everydayer of this podcast. You are the reason why Locked On is the #1 sports podcast in the galaxy. And you can level up your everydayerness by joining the Everydayer Club at the link in the description below, lockedonfalcons.supercast.com. For $5 a month or $50 a year, you can join that club and get perks like an ad-free version of Locked On Falcons. I know we always are advertising that show, and if you're tired of hearing the spiel about the Everydayer Club, hey, if you get an ad-free version of the podcast, you don't have to hear about that anymore. So that is one reason to join the Everydayer Club. So go check it out in the link in the description below. But Jarvis, we know Ian Cunningham is basically 1 week on the job. At this point in time, he's still getting the lay of the land in Flowery Branch. But we know from the past several years that somebody, we don't know exactly who, if it's an intern or one of the higher up people in that building, but there's a lot of evidence, mounting evidence that somebody in that building is always listening to these shows. Ian's new. So, that intern or whoever that is like, hey, Ian, as part of your daily routine, as you get set to build this championship caliber roster in Atlanta, you got to take 35 minutes. Normally I say 30 minutes, but we run a little long here on the podcast.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. You got to take those 35 minutes out of your day to go check out Locked On Falcons. So I say all that, just in case Ian Cunningham is listening and wants to, borrow a couple of things from, the vision of Jarvis Davis. Jarvis, lay out your vision for what you want to see this Atlanta Falcons team. Obviously, we got a Super Bowl in a couple of days, and obviously, there's going to be a lot of talk depending on the result of that game on like, oh, well, you got to borrow from the Seahawks or you got to do it like the Patriots did if you want to get to that highest level. So I'm just curious, what is your vision for the Atlanta Falcons, both short-term and potentially long-term?
For me, when you look at when the new league year starts, you have to kind of assess your team, figure out who you want to bring back, because you got some guys that are names that you're going to have to make some decisions on, right? And that starts with Kyle Pitts. I would like for them to look at it hard, take all the feelings out of it, take all the measurables out of it, and look at him for the player that he is. Like, oh, yeah, because the reason why I say take out the measurables because a lot of people can fall in love with that. Like, obviously, you look at him, you're like, oh, wow, I can do something with him. Oh, man, he has the talent. Oh, he has the speed. Oh, yeah, okay. But talk to his teammates. See what they think about him. Or, talk to some of the coaches that you have a relationship that will give an honest assessment of who he was when they were still here. I think that Ian is going to have to make the hard decision if he wants to really take this team where it needs to go. And that is into the postseason for the first time in 8 years. You're going to have to make some hard decisions. And then not only Kyle Pitts, how about Caden Ellis, right? He's at that age. I ain't going to say the number. Y'all know the number. Starts with a 3. Are you going to give him a bump? Another couple of years, like, are you willing to invest that type of money to a guy like Caden Ellis? And this has absolutely nothing to do with the type of player that he is. I know that has to be taken into account, but when you talk about good financial decisions, you're gonna have to make some hard ones. So, especially in the draft where this linebacker draft is pretty deep.
I heard some good things about the tight end class too, Jarvis.
Yeah, the tight end class pretty solid too. So those are some of the things that I feel if Ian is listening to this podcast, Ian, listen to your, you know what I'm saying? I know I introduced myself to you, you know what I'm saying? But you probably weren't listening at the time, but at least you heard my question, you know what I mean? Whatever. And I appreciate that, answering that. But you got to be able to make the hard decision. You got to be able to say, all right, I understand what you did in your contract year 8, but let's talk about those other years. I'll give you a pass on the one that you were injured, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll leave that one out. What happened on this one? Here's what happened on this particular play. And if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Free. His agent is David Mulugeta, right?
I believe so.
Mulugeta don't play no games when it comes to negotiation. That man is trying to get that bag.
Yeah,
he wants his percentage to be as much as possible, sir.
Yes.
So I know y'all love Kyle Pitts, but if Kyle Pitts walks away from this team, don't be too hurt by that. I feel like that would be a good, sound decision to make because you want to not only build something for right now, but you want to be able to build something for the future, and you want to make sure you're financially able to take care of guys who are coming up really, really soon.
Jarvis, I think those are some great points. You talk about vision, right? Mm-hmm. And I talked about this earlier this week with Caden Ellis. I love Caden Ellis as a player. I've firmly been championing him for the last 3 years. Basically, I broke it down to you pay Caden Ellis if you want to keep blitzing, like we saw this team have a lot of success doing with Caden Ellis over the last 3 years. Mm-hmm. If that's the identity and the vision that you have for this defense, and obviously Jeff Ulbrich is going to have a big input on that. Sure. If that's the identity that you want to embrace, you want to, be challenging Brian Flores for who's going to be the blitz happiest defense in the league, then no problem paying Caden Ellis. Mm-hmm. But if your goal is to build a 4-man pass rush that you can just rely on 4 guys, then it doesn't make a ton of sense to invest the resources in Caden Ellis, because if you want to maximize Caden Ellis, you got to use him as that 5th guy that is going to be bringing the pressure, because, as he gets older, right, with that number with the 3, the coverage skills are going to be a little less. The pass rushing should be able to stay pretty well because, you get savvier with your old age with the technique and all that stuff, but the coverage skills probably will diminish over time. And so on those 3rd downs, you want Caden Ellis rushing the quarterback. So that to me kind of is the simple quote unquote dilemma when it comes to Caden Ellis. What do you want to be from a vision standpoint? With Kyle Pitts, it's a little bit more complicated because it's always like, hey, pay your good players. He earned a contract. And I think as someone who has been defending Kyle Pitts on this podcast for many, many years, it is not an indictment, in my opinion, of Kyle Pitts to not pay him. But to me, it's more an indictment of the way that Terry Fontenot built the roster, and to basically go into this offseason paying Kyle Pitts, and then you're going to pay Drake London, right? And then you're going to eventually pay Bijan Robinson. You're just doubling down on what Terry Fontenot did, but instead of doing it with draft picks, you're just doing it with free agent dollars. Yeah. And again, I'm not going to say that's a bad strategy, but it is one of those things where this has been the Falcons strategy for the last couple of years. It hasn't paid off. And to just basically double down, triple down, whatever you want to call it, on that same strategy and be like, well, this time it's going to work. to me is highly questionable at this point in time.
And putting your mark on this team, like I think that's an excellent point. Like you can't continue to do what Terry did. If that was the case, just keep Terry, and hope that it works out. And one thing about hope and football, they don't go together. Like you got to have vision. It's just if you don't have a clear and understanding of what you're trying to do and having a plan and laying that bad boy out like brick by brick, and you don't have a foundation. The foundation is offensive line and defensive lineman and working inside out. Like you're going down a rabbit hole, man. And like you said, and then when you are sitting in this conundrum, so to speak, whether you pay Kyle Pitts or you don't pay Kyle Pitts, you have to say, what is my foundation? What are my foundational beliefs? And if my foundational beliefs are building in the trenches, I can't pay a tight end that type of money, especially when a guy that drafted him got fired.
We'll see. We'll see where the Falcons go on that potential dilemma, but we'll also see, what's the future at quarterback, right? We know that Michael Penix is coming off this injury. Are the Falcons going to sign a bridge quarterback? Or are they going to try to get a guy on that could maybe be the long-term answer? I've had a lot of conversation with Jarvis Davis over the last several months. We haven't had this conversation either off air or on air, so we're going to have it on air to wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets are changing the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play, you decide. Trade every play with Robinhood, now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swap trading involves significant risk and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives, LLC, a registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. It's a new year, and whether you're looking to simplify because you want to eat healthier or just simplify your life, one way you can do that is easy with reliable dinner plans. And that's why I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Home Chef. They're going to take the stress out of cooking by delivering fast, fresh, pre-proportioned ingredients right to your door with easy-to-follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, taste, value, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why, because their meals come ready to fit your schedule with a wide variety of options, from family-sized meals to quick lunches, and there are plenty of options that fit dietary descriptions and limitations. So if you're looking to save time and money, Home Chef has also got you. Customers are going to save an average of $86 per month on groceries. So for a limited time, Home Chef is offering the listeners 50% off your first box, plus free shipping, plus free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/lockedon. That's homechef.com/lockedon for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. You must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. So Jarvis, I remember 2 years ago after the Super Bowl, we spent a month on this podcast talking about what do the Falcons do at quarterback. And to me, the conclusion I came up with is they're probably going to sign Kirk Cousins just because of they need to have something to sell Arthur Blank on why you gave me the job, and just being like, oh, we'll figure it out later, which is what the Arthur Smith strategy was, got him fired. And so they're going to do something differently. And, I think we'll start having some of those conversations next week on the podcast, similar to what we did then. But I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on what the Falcons should be doing at the quarterback position?
Malik Willis sounds good. I was actually just watching some of his stuff before we came on, because I feel like what he did in Green Bay with Matt LaFleur, I thought that was, he actually proved that he belongs in the NFL, right? Because coming from the Titans, it was just an absolute, we know that's a mess, because for the guy that they fired to be in the Super Bowl right now is just astounding. It's amazing. But when you look at the situation that Mike Penix is in, and you have to take in consideration, like, all right, there's a possibility that he might not be ready to start the season. So, yeah, you need to get someone in here that can come in and run Stefanski's system and win you a few games if it bleeds into the season, right? And if it doesn't bleed into the season, you still need someone to take those number one snaps until Michael Penix is ready to go. So I'm looking at a guy like a Malik Willis who has some promise, and if you feel that, and if he does well, I mean, that can be a guy you can accumulate picks off from. After he left Tennessee, everybody was looking at him like, man, this dude is an absolute bust. 2022 was the worst quarterback draft class ever. Malik Willis was my favorite quarterback in that draft. Like, I really liked him. I liked him over all the other guys. And, the guy that was brought down here, we're not going to go back into that world. But I think, yeah, man, for me, I'm looking at a guy that can potentially, I would prefer maybe a younger guy, not necessarily a Joe Flacco. I don't want that. I would prefer him to be a little bit younger, have a little bit more promise or future in his season, and be able to be a viable starter for you if need be.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I think, specifically talking about Malik Willis, there's some upside there. There's some upside that if you sign Malik Willis, he could be the long-term answer. He's a guy that I do think would legitimately give Michael Penix a legit run for his money. And, I think, as you laid out, the potential upside is that you, again, similar strategy we saw the Falcons do before, which take two swings at the spot and like, okay, it's potentially going to be Malik Willis or Michael Penix, but unlike, the previous incarnation of it,
guaranteeing $100 million.
Yeah. You're spending probably a little bit less.
Yeah.
And you're getting a younger player that has potentially his best football play ahead of him, as opposed to the previous quarterback, who Kirk Cousins, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down, whose best football was behind him. But Jarvis, I'm curious, talking about Kirk Cousins, the expectation is the Falcons are going to cut Kirk Cousins, but a lot of people, myself included, think there's a chance that the Falcons could re-sign Kirk Cousins to potentially be that bridge. We have had a conversation about this off air. I know you're a lot more skeptical that Kirk or the Falcons would be willing to sign up for that relationship again. But, for the listeners who haven't had that conversation with you, lay out your thoughts on the potential for a Kirk Cousins reunion after March 13th.
Not going to happen.
Okay.
I don't see it at all. Here's why. Kirk was lied to, man. The reason why he left Minnesota, because Minnesota was very upfront as to what they were doing. Hey, man, we're going to draft a replacement, but we still want you to be a starter. Kirk like, nah, man, I don't want nobody looking over my shoulder. And he came down here to Atlanta because what Ra and Terry told him, you're going to be our guy. We're going to give you $100 million to back that up. Oh, y'all fell in love with the Penix dude, right? Kirk was going to be upset because he was running from that. And he couldn't stop running from it. And I don't think he wants to be in that situation again, because guess what? If they bring him back, that would be continuing what Terry was doing, right? Like what type of step would that be? And, for Ian and Matt, like, dog, that didn't work. So why we running that back from the Falcons' perspective? Kirk shouldn't want to come back. I wouldn't. And the Falcons should be looking at him like, nah, man, appreciate your services. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year for the next 10, 30 years or until you die. That's a lot of doggone money, bro. That man is straight. You hear me? So, not that I'm in his pockets or anything like that, because I don't do that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But man, the man is okay. He's gonna be all right. And I think that, man, ultimately, I feel like Kirk might go ahead and call it quits.
I think that's a real possibility.
You know what I mean? Like, think about it. You know he's gonna be good on television. He's an engaging guy. I've had the chance to talk to him off the mic. You know, Kirk is a look you in the eye type guy, really interested in who you are and want to know about you as a person, and forgetting all this football reporter, media, all that stuff. He don't care about that for real. You know, like he's a genuine dude, and that portrays well on sports broadcast at that desk. So yeah, I feel like he'll probably hang it up and get into sports broadcasting, man, and make some of that easy money.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Jarvis. You know, as we sit here today, I think that's a higher probability in terms of the outcome than I thought, you know, a couple of weeks ago when the Falcons made the hire of Kevin Stefanski. You know, I'll be curious if Kevin's going to be like, look, Zach didn't know how to use Kirk. I know how to maximize Kirk. So we'll see if that ego, when you talk about why would the Falcons sign up for that, you know, we know coaches have egos where it's like, look, my system works and that other guy's system didn't work, but we'll see on that front.
49 years old, it's still
yeah. I agree with you. I think Kirk wants to go to a situation where he doesn't have to look over his shoulder. Mm-hmm. The problem is he's probably not going to get that situation. This previous stint in Atlanta was his real last shot for that. And unfortunately, Kirk did not play at a high enough level over these last 2 years to be guaranteed a starting job without any sort of pivot point, any plan B type of situation. And so if that is not offered to him from somebody else, in my mind, it's like, well, Kevin Stefanski, you know the offense, you know you can do some stuff here, depending on what the contract offer is. Maybe Atlanta is your best option if you want to keep playing. But as you put it, Kirk would have no problem at this point in time calling it quits and moving on to the next phase of his life and redeeming what he said, you know, retiring as an Atlanta Falcon. And, you know, he could legitimately do that.
Yeah. And it's okay because you're in a position where you have your health now and you can walk away from this thing, man. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that with Kirk, you know, given what he's been able to accomplish, nobody was projecting this. Being one of the highest paid quarterbacks to ever play the game. You know, he was one of those guys where he didn't mind taking those 1-year deals. And man, he opened up a whole new perspective when it comes to what players can and will accept, you know. And I think that God bless him, man. God bless his agent, bro. Because that is he gets it. He gets it, man. And you know, and it's probably, and I might be giving the agent a little bit too much credit. This might have been Kirk. Like, hey, man, I'm young, I'm healthy. Let's go ahead and get these 1-year deals, man, until we get a long term. Like, I'm gonna prove it to him. I'm gonna be that guy. Because, you know, I think that when you think about Kirk's evaluation when he first came out and bring it to now, and you look at all the numbers and everything that he's put up, you're like, man, nobody saw this coming. They didn't project that, especially when he was drafted with the Redskins at the time, you know, with Robert Griffin III in the first round. Nobody saw this. So for him to accomplish what he's been able to accomplish, man, hey, man, he's winning, dog.
Yeah. Bet on himself a number of times, and he has won that bet and has the money to pay for it. Yes. You know, I respect the bag getter. You know, I know a lot of Falcon fans, absolutely, you know, hate Kirk because they feel like he stole money, and it's like that ain't your money. That's Arthur Blake's money. I ain't sleep over Arthur Blake losing money. And I respect anybody who can secure the bag as well as Kirk Cousins has over the last 14 years it's been. Good grief.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Kirk. That will be a continued conversation, as well as what the Falcons do at the quarterback position. We'll continue to take a deep look at that as we gear up for the scouting combine, as well as free agency over the next month or so. So continue to make Locked On Falcons your first listen. If you want to catch those conversations, of course, check out Locked On NFL, as well as Locked On Patriots, Locked On Seahawks, if you guys want to get geared up for this weekend's big game. And of course, they'll have you covered all weekend long with the latest happenings in Super Bowl 60. And of course, go check out the link in the description below at lockedonfalcons.supercast.com if you want to join the Everydayer Club and not have to hear any advertisements, as well as get other perks for $5 a month or $50 a year. Go check it out. It is all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every